guest today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a great friend and colleague of mine, Nate Linder, who is running Indigo Labs, a strategic marketing firm out here in Chicago that is ultimately making some big waves in helping brands grow and scale their digital strategies. So, help studies, helping out UX Bright with a couple of things too. So, thanks for coming on, Nate. It's great having you on.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I was really looking forward to this.
All
Of
right.
course, of course. So, what's at Growth Labs, we're all about the entrepreneur story. And funny enough, right? You and I went to the same university, Illinois
We did.
State. And during the time I was running my first startup business, and then I think you were starting to get your early chops as a consultant. So, really would love to just paint a picture for the audience of your journey since the ISU days and how you reached Indigo Labs today.
Yeah,
Love to hear.
absolutely. Yeah. So, during my time at ISU, I knew I wanted to own a business someday, right? I didn't know exactly what that was going to be, even what industry I really wanted to pursue. What I did was I moved to England for a year. I got my master's degree in management and entrepreneurship. During that time, I started up an e-commerce brand called Moonrock Company, basically a company that I would design yoga products, so like yoga accessories, yoga mats, yoga pants, things like that. And I would also design essential oil diffusing jewelry. So basically,
Mm,
jewelry that you can wear and you could get the benefits of your essential oils while wearing that jewelry. During that time, I realized I really enjoyed running the company. My favorite part of it was running the paid ads, coming up with advertising strategies, social media strategies, Google strategies, things like that. But I realized I didn't really love running the business. I
mhm.
don't do a ton of yoga myself. I do, a little bit here and there, but it's not a huge passion of mine. And again, throughout the time of running that company, I realized my passion was really in the marketing side of the business. And I figured, I could probably take this skill set that I acquired and help other businesses across the world, generate leads or drive sales to their website or just increase awareness to reach their goals. So that's kind of how I got my, feet wet in the advertising space. And then from there, I've just been running Indigo Labs ever since.
What do you think is, I think we're seeing a dynamic change in marketing in so many ways, but how do you keep up with continuing the changes that happen on a regular basis in digital marketing?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of great places to find that kind of information. Fortunately for myself, obviously I run a digital marketing agency. I'm connected very well with the people at Google, for example, Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn. That's one advantage that many agencies have is that we can get in touch with people from those different companies very quickly, and they also reach out to us as well to help educate us on new features that they roll out, such as Google Performance Max, which is something that got rolled out into the market maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and something that's been a huge lead driver for many of my clients personally. But like when that feature got rolled out, Google reaches out to me proactively, sets up some time. They have really interactive webinars that I can join, but I also get some one-on-one time with people from those types of companies that can walk me through the new capabilities and answer any questions that I have related to them.
Mhm.
No, that's great. Sounds like you keep a lot of the sources close to chest, which is great, especially when you want to stay above the fold and beat out competitors. As you started your own business and you started working with business owners, what have you found some of those core problems that you really help solve for folks nowadays?
Yeah. I would say probably 90% of the businesses that I approach or that approach me have some kind of can do a better job of maybe driving more leads or online
Mhm.
sales. I feel like in today's business world, the truth is unless you're a company that has at least tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year, you're probably not in a position to do what we'd call like a brand awareness campaign, right? You
Right.
really need your marketing efforts to drive real business results, and probably as quickly as possible. So 90% of the businesses that I talk to, what they tell me is, Nate, my roofing business needs more leads, right? Maybe we're getting leads for siding and windows, but not for roofing. Or if I'm talking to an e-commerce company, maybe they sell, accessories for your vehicle.
Right.
They're telling me, Nate, we need to drive as many sales to the website as we can, get our products in as many people's hands as we can. So that's most of what I do is lead generation or e-commerce or just some kind of digital growth campaign overall. But when I talk to some of the Fortune 500 type clients, a lot of it is general branding, right? They say, Nate, I want to reach 10 million people with my message within 3 months, right? And tell me how we can get there. And those types of campaigns are very impactful for those types of businesses. But it is very much a luxury to be able to just drop 6-7 figures on a branding campaign.
And that's the key thing. And I think the biggest challenge is each marketing agency has their specific sauce, and there's not always the right fit for certain companies based on their expectations and what they want. And with there's so many different menus out there when it comes to marketing, especially with organic social really growing a lot and looking at specifically enough other types of avenues, it's really that client has to have the right fit and feel. And that's what we're seeing at Media Giant Productions as well is, you know what? It's just not the right fit. It's not the kind of company or author or marketing we're looking at that works really well, especially for what our core value is versus someone else's core value. And I think, Nate, you see that in those conversations when you're looking to work with somebody.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of marketing things that I don't do, right? For example, experiential marketing. So think like event-based marketing,
Hmm.
Yeah.
creating trade show booths and helping with
Hmm.
design those types of experiences for people. Those are things that are just not really what I focus my agency on, but there's agencies out there that are doing incredible in that space and making a lot of money and creating incredible experiences for people. So can't necessarily do it all, but I'd rather do one thing or do a handful of things and do them really well, and then as opposed to try to do everything per
Yeah.
se.
No, it's a huge part of it. And one of the things that I'm sure maybe you guys have even faced too is you're running into business owners and they've worked with a marketing agency before that somehow just burned them, right? In the past, didn't really give those results, right? And so just curious of, how do you go about your marketing approach? I know we talked about it a little bit more, but just want to go more in depth. How do you guys tailor your marketing approach versus other agencies, right? Because everybody claims they can run ads, everybody can claims they can do SEO. But I know you bring a very specific skill set to what you do, and curious to hear how you know how others can hear you as not just another marketing firm, but a true strategic partner.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that I hear very, very often is, oh, well, I worked with a marketing agency. I spent $20,000 with this agency or $2,000 with this agency, and I got nothing in return, right? And the truth is, look, there's a lot of bad digital marketers out there. I don't think there's any secret about that. There's no shortage of bad digital marketers out there. There's also, sometimes when you work with agencies, there's things beyond the agency's control. So like if you have a poorly set up website in the first place and you're not letting your agency
Mm-hmm.
impact that in any way, that's a huge deal, right? You can run a very ineffective marketing campaign, even if you have great creatives, if your landing page and website sucks, right? So there's plenty of bad marketers, but there's also just sometimes there's more work that needs to be done than just setting up a lead generation campaign,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a conversation. And obviously what you do, Chris, right, is kind of help with those types of things. So that's definitely worth noting. But in terms of how I position my agency, I'm very much conversion focused. So that's a huge thing that I spend time on, right? When I meet with business owners, and there's different things we can talk about. We can talk about the videos we're going to make. We can talk about the life cycle of the client, like how long does it take to actually close a deal with your insert audience here. But really what I do is before we launch anything, I set up conversion tracking. So we're going to be able to track any
Right.
sales that happen on the website. If somebody fills out a form, if they click a phone number on your website to give you a call, all those things are going to be set up and in place, and those pixels are going to be firing correctly before we launch the first advertisement at all. So
Yeah.
that way, as we run it, we're getting data back in real time and seeing, okay, is creative one outperforming creative two, or audience one versus audience two? How are things looking? We can kind of shift our budget around as we run a campaign like that to take the money out of the bad and put it into the good, basically. So
Yeah, that's
like
great.
that's very much what I focus on during my conversations with business owners, and how I brand myself through my advertising, even through my own podcast. It's very much results focused. Like I said, 90% of the business owners I talk to, probably even more than that, tell me I need leads or I need sales on my website. So
Yeah.
that's what I focus on. And the truth is, there's a lot of marketing agencies out there that guarantee results, right? They say, oh, we're going to get you 10 new clients.
And do you believe that? See, that's the problem we deal with. They guarantee it instead of tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just not how marketing works. I
No,
can't.
but that's the problem. There's so many. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the problem. But I think with the evolution of AI, it's eliminating a lot of those agencies that are promising the 10 guarantee because they find out that's not true if they ask AI.
Yeah, yeah, very true. That's a great point. I haven't even considered that, actually. And look, I can help businesses rank in the number one spot in Google. I can help them run campaigns that are entirely focused on lead generation or online sales, but I'm not holding a gun to somebody's head on the other side of the computer and saying, hey, you have to fill out this form on the website, or you have to make a purchase.
And if their product sucks, it's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's stuff you can't control, no matter how much you throw at the marketing machine.
or they just or literally they don't have testimonials, right?
Right.
They don't have a client base yet, or they think they do, and there's so many operational screw ups. Like I was at an event yesterday, and this is my second or third event since I've kind of gone out of COVID because I get most of my clients just for my show. Can you believe that? That's all I get. That's how I get all my clients. And I literally get there and I see one of the biggest missing things. They don't know how to promote themselves once they get to a trade show or an event. They don't even know how to talk to the customers. So then if we're running an ad, we get them leads, they come on, and then once they contact them, they don't know how to handle that lead and close that lead. That's not on us three, right?
Right.
100%. And I see that so often. Bad onboarding processes, no types of just processes in general for when you get the new client, what do you do next? Right. And
Right.
Right.
that's
Yeah.
something that impacts so many businesses out there. And as I can kind of consult with companies in terms of how to do that, but it is on them to make sure, hey, this gets into the hands of their salespeople. Their salespeople have a good script. They are personable, right? Like I can't control those things. So again, to go back to factors that are out of the control of marketing agencies, these are the types of things I'm talking about, where it's like we can run very effective advertising campaigns, but if you can't take in the lead, or if you're having shipping problems, right? Like I cannot help you with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where this relationship, and this is why great having all three marketers on right now, is that relationship with their customer. When you take on a client, do they even have a relationship yet with a customer? And once they have that relationship, is it the cure? Here, it's the weirdest thing in the world, and I know I'll get offended by this, but this is me and Mister I. I'll just say this: do they have the cure for cancer? Meaning, do they have a cure for their customer? And the reason that that's so important is if they don't have the cure for their customer, they can't solve that pain point they're asking for. It's not going to sell.
Yeah.
And I have so many times I've sat down with people, and I'm luckily in this phase now in my agency. Like, no, thank you. It's not going to work. And thank goodness for the solution. Thanks to a couple marketing agencies that market authors, they just pay me to come bring their authors on the shows, so I can focus on working with smaller businesses or companies that really need that networking touch and things like that. That I didn't have to. I had to struggle through those authors that just couldn't sell stuff. And this is the process that you go through as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And Nate, I think that the big thing, and I'm going to get Chris's feedback. This is the thing that we deal with is we deal with ultimately things that are out of our control that makes it very difficult. And I always talk to people and say, there's the next shiny object doesn't mean you should leave your current agency and go somewhere else just because you think that the other person has the magic elixir. It might be you.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are hitting everything on the head. my business usually has to do with working with folks on the digital side on the web, and there are so many gaps between uh, delivering that cure for cancer that they have that they just simply haven't addressed, right? So um, I think this leads into one of the most important topics is having a tailored and fully connected buyer journey, right? Because that's what convergence is all about is how can I take something that I see from an ad or just awareness and then get into this, learn about it, create desire for myself, and then create some type of action, which is buy your product or service, right? And that's what I think a lot of people are missing is how do you craft and match your true buyer's journey so that all your digital marketing systems are reflecting of that truly. And I think the ones that can map out that journey fully and be able to fill in those gaps, those are going to be the agencies and businesses that win the day 100%.
Yeah,
And Nate, do you
100%.
notice so much now when you take on that how much they need branding? And that's what you said you offer too. Wanted to bring that up, right? Do you offer
Yeah.
the branding part of the business?
Yeah, they're all very important aspects of your marketing strategy, right? You want to get the right people to the website, and then you
Mm-hmm.
want to retarget those people in the most cost effective way possible. That's really how I try to map it out for my prospective clients, right? Companies that I'm meeting with, maybe I haven't closed a deal with them yet, but I'm trying to share with them what exactly the plan is. That's how I lay it out. Is and to give an example of what this could look like. Earlier today I was talking to a company in the B2B space, right? They want to reach business decision makers. They want to drive
Mm-hmm.
leads through the website from business decision makers. That's the entire goal. So first of all, we looked at, I looked at all the different platforms that I have access to. LinkedIn is one of my favorite social media platforms and just digital marketing tactics in general for companies looking to reach that B2B audience. I like to always say if you start a new business or you get a new job or you get promoted at a current job, LinkedIn's going to be that first social network that finds out about it. And for that reason, the job title targeting is really second to none.
Mm-hmm.
So by using LinkedIn, we can do, video ads, we can do images, we can do carousels, you can even do LinkedIn message ads. I'm not a huge fan of those. I like video the most for LinkedIn,
Okay.
and image ads as well. But we're driving the right people to the website with LinkedIn. And then from there, we're using low cost retargeting tactics to get in front of people over and over and over. Because let's be honest, most people go to the website, they look around a little bit, and then they leave, right? And it takes about 9 or 10 touches typically, across different platforms to get somebody to take action. So again, drive the right people to the website, retarget them with the most cost-effective retargeting strategies. In many cases, that's going to be meta ads, for example. It could be Google Performance Max, and there's a lot of other things that you can do as well. But those are two of the very big ones out there. So that's kind of how I map it out for those business owners, and just a format and a strategy that I really like to follow.
Yeah. Um, I really love that you mapped out some real great nuggets for how you go about your LinkedIn strategy. One thing that I wanted to touch base on is um wanted to wanted you to help us illuminate, how much should a company start investing in their marketing for it to start being truly effective. I've sort of started to consult with folks that do these halfway measure attempts, or maybe they might do one part of the marketing funnel, but may neglect other pieces. And the question I always try to help folks come to is uh, how much are you willing to invest in your marketing so that it actually produces reasonable results? And curious to hear your thoughts on what you've seen so far as like that ballpark number that, if you're maybe you're a solo entrepreneur and you're like, hey, I want to put some dollars towards a campaign that's effective. What does that start to look like in terms of what you should be thinking about investment wise, right? Not, doesn't have to be a hard number, but what are the things we should start thinking about? Because I think that's the mindset shift that we as marketers have to work with business owners on is marketing is not a purely always ROI activity. There are aspects of it that contribute to ROI, but not to think so short term, right? Because a lot of the strategies we implement often have to be long term and need to be habitual. So Just curious to hear what your thoughts have been in terms of that, psychology and perspective,
Hmm.
um, for how to really get a business owner invested in their marketing. I think that's
Yeah.
super important.
No, yeah, it's an important question. It's an appropriate question. It's a question that I get all the time, right? For example, I recently started talking to a gym based out of Virginia. They have this big, beautiful complex. They had no idea what they should be spending on advertising on a month-to-month basis, or if they should do it all at once or spread it out throughout the whole year. Yeah, so a question that I get all the time. I think and I can certainly share numbers. There's different types of businesses that kind of require different investments up front for their marketing. And what I mean by that is if you are to use the example of a roofing company, for example, right? If you're like a local service company, you have a defined service area, maybe it's like, 20, 25 zip codes that you operate in. There's actually tools that'll tell you what you should spend each and every month. Google has a keyword planner. It could tell you what, clicks are going to cost per click. You can use a tool to see the search impression share. Typically, you want your Google searches to populate within 20 to 40% of the searches being made for your keywords within your service area. So there's tools you can use to get actual numbers. I would say to throw some, kind of basic numbers out there for a company like that, 2 to 3 thousand a month is an appropriate budget for kind of a starting point in terms of what should I be spending on my digital advertising. And especially if you're a local service business or really just a local business in general, having a strong presence on Google, creating a business profile, right? That's a huge piece of SEO that's 100%
Hmm.
free. You can make posts on your profile. You can get
Oh
people
yeah.
to review you. Those are free things that business owners can do themselves. There's not any kind of super advanced tracking or anything in place that you have to know to kind of set those things up. But I would say most businesses, especially if you are a very small business, and 2 to 3 thousand a month is a large investment for you to be
Hmm.
making into your business for marketing. Work with an agency, right? Find a freelancer that's talented that can help you. Someone that doesn't have to pay 100 employees underneath them, but somebody that has experience and in running these types of campaigns and can help you be effective. One thing that I will say is for brands, for example, if you want to start like a nutritional supplement brand, maybe you're selling protein powder or magnesium gummies or whatever you're selling, right? Those types of brands typically take a larger investment up front for marketing. And with those types of brands, that's where you see influencer marketing
Mm.
more often than not, right? Attaching themselves to certain podcasts, certain maybe TV stars, athletes, people that match their brand. That's why you see a lot of those types of athletes those types of people, whether they're athletes or actors or whoever, start those types of brands as well themselves. But those types of companies typically take a larger investment up front,
Right.
because you want to, and that's also can be a huge part of your content strategy. Not only are you benefiting from being on those shows or working with those people, but you can maybe reuse, reclip that content and use it for paid ads or do more social media plays with those types of
Hmm.
individuals.
Yeah, it sounds like that's very much tied to, are you in a red ocean type of environment or blue ocean,
Hmm.
and that will really ultimately determine whether or not how big your investment size is on the marketing side.
And then Nate, when you're talking ad spend 3,000 a month, or are you talking the full thing? That's
I
ad
would say
spend, huh?
all in. Yeah, no, I would say all in. I mean, different agencies charge differently, but if you're working with somebody that, uses a basic management fee or just like a monthly retainer, 2 to 3 thousand a month will get you enough advertising spend to at least test the waters and
Mhm.
have a general idea of what's actually working, what's not working. Um, as long it really takes like a 3 month test to truly
Right.
see
About
what
three
works the
months.
best.
Okay.
But one great thing about the platforms that we have today is like with Meta or Google, you can typically what I say to my clients is when we first start a campaign, like we don't want to make any changes in the first 2 weeks at all. We want it to just run and just strictly collect data that we can make informed decisions based upon. Sometimes at that 2 week point, really dependent on the level of spend more than anything, but
Mm.
50% of the time I'd say we can start to make optimizations at that time. Sometimes we still want to see if there's more data. Maybe there's not a clear story to tell or a clear picture to paint from the data.
Right.
So we want that before we start to make optimizations. But traditionally speaking, right? If I was in Mad Men, right, and I'm in the decades ago, when we're doing billboards and maybe radio ads and TV, like you really need to let those wait and see, how they work, because you're not able to just log into a dashboard that shows you your click-through rates for every single creative you're running, your conversion rates for every single audience you're targeting, for example. So the data that we have at our now allows us to be more nimble and allows us to move faster in terms of those optimizations for campaigns.
All right. Well, that's great. Nate, best place people can connect with you. Where can they go?
Yeah, if you guys, if you want to check out my website, my digital agency, it is indigolabsagency.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, Nate_Linder. And then my podcast is called Entrepreneurship Unlocked with Nate Linder. I had Chris on quite a few episodes ago, probably dropped 5 weeks ago. So definitely would encourage you guys to check out that episode and the other episodes I have up. But yeah, really appreciate you guys for having me on today. This was a great conversation.
All right. And
Likewise,
go to uxbright.com for this secret information on Christopher. Appreciate it, guys. That was a special simulcast.